Welcome into Seahawks Today. I am your host, Will Ortner, and it's that time of year again. We're making our final 53-man roster projections for your Seattle Seahawks here at Chat Sports. Excited to see what the Seahawks do. Obviously, it feels like you're going to see some cuts today that pretty much everyone was expecting coming out on Monday, but on Tuesday, that's where you're going to see some of the fireworks fly. Now, remember, when I go through my final 53-man roster projection, I'm not going to be 100% perfect. I try to be. My mom says that I am, but unfortunately, in the eyes of most of you, I am not. So I want to hear what your opinions are when it comes to some of the bubble players that may or may not make this Seattle Seahawks roster. Make sure you let me know in the comments. Maybe you agree with me, maybe you don't, but we can have a nice civil discussion down below in the comments. Now, I want to start off with the offense for the Seahawks. That seems like the most fun place to begin because that's what everybody wants to talk about. Can the Seattle Seahawks offense take a step forward? And right now, with what I've seen in the preseason from the quarterback room, I think we're going to see a lot of progress over there. And that's not to say that Geno Smith did a bad job last year. It's just that I think Sam Darnold can take this unit to the next level. Now, it's one of the easier position groups to project. Why? Because no one's getting cut. Sam Darnold is going to stay as your starter. He was perfect in the preseason, did well at the Green Bay Packers joint practice, despite what the Packers want to say. He had one interception. I think he did pretty darn well. Drew Lock at this point is your QB2. I know some people wanted Jalen Milroe to go out against the Packers, completely dominate, maybe take over in that position. Right now, Milroe, he needs to be the 3. He's a developing product, and he'll get there as soon as he possibly can. But that does mean he's going to have to spend some time behind Drew Lock, who I do believe is one of the better QB2s in the NFL right now. Now, I will say this about Milroe. You are going to see him in action this year, and I believe you're going to see him a lot in the low red zone, him using his legs from that quarterback position to run around, move around, use his athletic abilities to help put yourself and, frankly, put the defense in a bad spot, put yourself in a great spot. So don't be shocked if you see Milroe getting some time and some action. Now, my first controversial pick is going to be in this running back room. Now, I am including Robbie Oots when it does come to the tailbacks and running backs and fullbacks. So I do say that they're going to keep 5 backs. Make sure that you understand that Robbie Oots is one of those 5. He will not pop up on this depth chart. On this depth chart, I have Seattle taking the top 4 running backs. Obviously, they're going to keep Kenneth Walker. Obviously, they're going to keep Zach Charbonnet. After that first preseason game, I feel like George Halani basically ensured that he was going to make this roster, even though I think some people going into training camp, myself included, were a bit worried about where he'd end up on this roster. And I am going to have the Seahawks keep Damian Martinez. Now, you've seen some of the other experts come out and say that the Seahawks shouldn't keep Martinez. Some have said that they should, like myself. The ones who agree with me, I think, are a little bit smarter than the ones who disagree with me. And that's because, in my eyes, Damian Martinez has showed so much upside, and he's such a young player. Remember, he just got drafted this year. He was a 7th-round pick. And most of the time, you don't talk about the 7th-round picks as having crazy upside, right? Those are the types of players that, hey, they have to do a lot of things on special teams to make this roster. Damian Martinez, he's big. He's physical. He's strong when he's moving down the field. And from what I saw out of him in college over at Oregon State and Miami, I think that he can and should make this roster. In my eyes, Damian Martinez has to be kept. Now, the next position group we're going to go to, another controversial one, and I understand it. It's a position group where I have been banging on the table for a trade. Obviously, you're going to keep Jackson Smith and Jigba. Obviously, you're going to keep Cooper Kupp. Torrey Horton, he's going to stay. He's played incredible this preseason. In my eyes, Jake Bobo has done more than enough to make this team. And I have been on the table saying Riq Young needs to make this roster. Unfortunately, I don't think he's going to because I think the Seahawks are going to keep MVS. Now, that isn't because, MVS has played poorly per se. It's because I think Riq Young has played that well. And you can use him on at least 4 special teams. When I look at MVS right now, there was a point in time where maybe you could use him as a punt returner. Maybe you could have used him as a kick returner, and then Torrey Horton exploded onto the scene. Now, I understand that Horton's dealing with an ankle injury. How long is that really going to hinder his play? In my eyes, I don't think that he's going to miss week 1. I think he's going to play. Maybe you want to be careful with him. He's a rookie. He's young. Maybe he doesn't play against San Francisco. He'll be playing by week 2. If you want to give him some extra time off, hey, maybe you wait until week 3 to use him as a kick returner or as a punt returner. I would prefer that this Seahawks team keep 5 receivers. I think that allows you to build some extra depth in the trenches, and I'll get to that in a moment with the O-line and with the D-line. But unfortunately for me, despite my best efforts, I have not been able to convince John Schneider to keep Riq Young. Fingers crossed that he's going to hold up and he's going to end up on the practice squad so that Seattle can eventually elevate him. Now, when it comes to the tight end room, I think you have a very strong crew, and I think that the Seahawks are going to keep 4 tight ends. And I'm throwing in your secondary fullback in this one, Brady Russell, because he is primarily a tight end in this offense. If Robbie Oots gets banged up, or maybe they just want to go into like a double wing situation, this is where you can use Brady Russell as an extra fullback. Also, his versatility right now on special teams, the kid's flying around making plays. This is the ultimate like underdog hustle story, because I think going into the year, Seattle probably was only going to keep 3 tight ends. He's played his way into that, and that's why special teams matters. Remember, it is 1/3 of the game. Obviously, you've got A.J. Barner as your number 1 tight end. In my eyes, Arroyo, he's played himself into that second tight end position. Salbert, great blocker, doesn't have the playmaking abilities that Arroyo has, and so that's why, in my eyes, Arroyo has put himself forward into that tight end too. You see that catch he made at joint practice against the Green Bay Packers? Incredible. So, in my eyes, this is where I'd look at the tight ends. Don't be shocked if you see a lot of tight ends playing a lot of snaps for this Seahawks team. Remember, in Clint Kubiak's system, he likes to use personnel groupings to gain advantages over the defense. And when you have tight ends like Barner, like Salbert, like Arroyo, that are not afraid to block and block at a highly efficient level, that's going to allow them to get on the field more in 12 personnel, 2 tight end sets. Now you're bringing more guys into the box, more one-on-one matchups for Sam Darnold to take advantage of. Now, we're going to talk next about the offensive line, and this is where it's going to get kind of funky, and I can already tell in the comments this is where most people are going to sound off, especially after the Packers game, where, let's call a spade a spade, there was a lot to be desired with this offensive unit. Now, the depth chart that I have created, I have not included a trade. I have created this depth chart to be what the Seahawks are going to keep with the players that are already on the roster. I will not be surprised if there is a roster move by the Seahawks after the other 53-man rosters get created. I would not be shocked if there's a veteran who has a high run blocking grade, high pass pro grade that just didn't fit in whatever his new team system was for them to go and get him. Right now, in my eyes, Jarrell has played well enough to be that swing tackle. Cable Dew, he's going to be right on the border. Does he make it? Does he not? He's one that I do think is going to be on this team as well. Jalen Sundell, in my eyes, has played well enough to earn that center spot. Oluwatimi, he's the perfect backup there as well. He can also bounce over to guard. Christian Haynes, in my eyes, I don't love how he's performed. This is kind of my bold prediction for that O-line. If it stays the same, you go with Cable Dew as opposed to going with Christian Haynes there. Also, it wouldn't be the end of the world. I think you're getting 5 one way, or 6 one way, half a dozen the other. Bad at math. Shout out Miss Kretz. Don't be shocked, though, if this Seahawks team goes out and they sign a veteran offensive lineman. That would make a change to what this offensive line unit looks like. The backups did not look good against Green Bay. They did not look good against the Packers. And in my eyes, you need to get some veteran leadership there as well. Now, I've just gone through what my offensive projection would be. When you look at this offense, how confident are you? I want you to give me a scale of 1 to 10. 1 being you're not confident at all. This is just rehashing the same offensive line unit that struggled so mightily last year. Or you're saying, hey, 10, I've seen enough. As long as everybody stays healthy, Cross comes back healthy from his finger injury, Abe Lucas is able to stay healthy the entire year, Anthony Bradford lost some weight, dude's road grading now, Gray Zabel is the future. Maybe you give this offensive unit a 10. Maybe you say, hey, Sam Darnold, he's going to be at MVP form just like he was for 90% of the year with Minnesota. Now I want to jump over to the defensive unit. We're going to start with the defensive line. Obviously, Riley Mills and Jonathan Hankins, they're still on the non-football injury list, which I think is interesting because Riley Mills, he tore his ACL playing football. He just did it in college. Hankins still working his way back from his back injury. So I've created this interior defensive line depth chart based on this. I do believe as soon as Hankins is able to come back, Seattle is going to activate him onto the roster as fast as they possibly can. The guy is an absolute stud. Don't expect to see Mills for probably about half of the year. So when we go through this defensive line unit, obviously you've got the big three, Jarran Reed, Leonard Williams, and Byron Murphy II. Murphy, he needs to have a much better year than he had last year. Last year he was fine. Good. I want great. I need more. Now, Mike Morris, Quinton Bohanna, and Brandon Peely, I believe with how they played in the preseason games, Peely getting that safety against the Chiefs, Mike Morris flying around, making plays all the time. Bohanna, it felt like he was constantly in the backfield, finally going to make a 53-man roster for the first time in his career right out of training camp. I feel like they've done enough to put themselves in a position to where they can help this team. You also have to understand that in Mike Macdonald's system, he needs a lot of interior defensive linemen because he's going to rotate through them and he's going to use a lot of them. I know Matabike became that great defensive line, that three-tech defensive tackle position when Mike Macdonald was in Baltimore. Understand that I think you're going to get the same thing from Byron Murphy. You saw Leonard Williams take a step forward. I think you're going to see him continue to play at that rate. But when you play at such a high level and this defense asks as much out of you as it does, you're going to need to have constant rotation. Big boys get tired, man. It's a little smaller gas tank than some of the others. Now, when it comes to the edge position room, this is where I make another bold claim, and I'm not going to be shocked if there are some Seattle Seahawks experts that don't love the group that I've created. Obviously, DeMarcus Lawrence and Uchenna Nwosu, those are your veterans. They're going to be leading the way. They're there to help teach Boye Mafe, Derek Hall, kind of the ropes. Now, I understand that Mafe and Hall have been in the league now for a couple of years, and so they're to a point where they're almost veterans themselves. You can always learn. Remember, a day that goes by that you don't learn something, that's just a wasted day. Now, where it gets interesting is Jared Ivey. What I saw out of Jared Ivey this preseason, I don't see how you cut him. I'm still confused on how he was an undrafted free agent that you were able to get out of Ole Miss. But against the Packers, the kid was flying around, making plays in the backfield, almost had a sack if he was able to bring the QB down. He left just enough room there for Tupatala to come in. He cleaned it up, so Ivey only gets the QB pressure and QB hit. But when I look at Jared Ivey, if you cut him, he's not going to make it back on your practice squad. He has played so well. He is so big. He is so strong at the point of attack. I understand that he's not quite the speedster that the other guys are. He's 6'6", 275, and he can win in power rush situations. In my eyes, even if he's not quite ready for prime time, he has to stay on this roster. Make him be the 52nd man. Make him be the 53rd man that makes the roster. But at this point, I believe in his career, he is going to be a special player, and you cannot let that kid walk out the door, because I do not know if he walks back inside of it. Inside linebackers, another easy position group to go through. Why? You already have that thing solidified. The only reason that there would be any changes to it throughout the year is going to be with some injury issues going through. Obviously, right now, Tyrese Knight still making his way back from some of his offseason injuries and issues. It does sound like they're pretty happy and excited with where he's at. He's continuing to build himself back towards playing on the field. I like the way that O'Connell performed in the preseason, flying around against the Green Bay Packers, making big plays in that one as well. Ernest Jones the fourth. Hey, I'm sorry that he's the third guy that I got to and that I mentioned. In my eyes, that guy is a complete and utter leader. There are 31 teams in the NFL right now that would like to use him in some way. I understand that he might not be as good as some of the other middle linebackers going around the league, but there's a lot of teams that could use an Ernest Jones the fourth. The other guy that I have making there is Drake Thomas. I felt like he played fantastic. I'm sorry to Ross. I'm sorry to Jackson. I don't think that you are going to be making this final 53-man roster. Now we're jumping into the cornerback room, and this is where it gets fun. When we talk about the DBs for the Seahawks, there's so many different variations and moves that this defensive unit can make, I just get excited thinking about it. If I was playing offense against this group, I wouldn't be excited. I'd be terrified. But you have a cornerback room with Devon Witherspoon that can play any of the DB positions that you really need, right? You need him to go into the nickel, he can do that. You need him to be the dime, he can do that. You need him to be a lockdown on the outside, he can do that. If you need to have him blitz and add into the run game or add into trying to get a sack against a quarterback in a fire zone, that guy can do it all. Riq Woolen, I still believe that he's one of the biggest freaks out there. Love what he's been doing. Josh Jobe had an interception early on in the preseason. I believe it was against the Raiders. I like what he's been able to do. Nehemiah Pritchett, been fantastic, flying around, making plays. When you have Shaquill Griffin as your fifth option in a cornerback room, you're doing something right. He's a guy who's been around the league for quite a while, had some success in Seattle early on in his career. I don't think he's a slouch. I think he adds an extra veteran presence. I love this cornerback room almost as much as I love the safety room. And when I look at the four safeties that I have kept on this roster, I literally started drooling. I had to change my shirt. It's unbelievable what all four of these players can do. And I think that they're only going to add to what certain players are doing throughout the season as they get more and more comfortable. And when I talk about wearing many hats, the first guy that I'm going to bring up is your draft pick, and that's Nehemiah Pritchett. Right now, you've been using him as like this big nickel type of player. We used to call it a buck position back when I was playing over at Central Washington, or depending on, the defensive coordinator, it was also at times called like a rover. Some teams call it a nickel. Whatever fancy name you want to put on it, they've been using Nehemiah Pritchett in this big nickel spot because he's basically playing in the linebacker box. You are getting a third linebacker, and Nehemiah Pritchett is big enough and strong enough to play that position while also at the same time being able to get back in coverage. Now, you've seen him make some mistakes. Guess what? He's a rookie. I don't know about you, but in my early 20s, I made a lot of mistakes too. And then, hopefully, I learned from most of them, or at least I'm still trying to learn from those mistakes. So as Nehemiah Pritchett gets more and more comfortable in this defense, expect to see him do more and more things. Julian Love, that guy's basically been the captain of that defensive secondary since he came over. I love everything that he's been doing. Kobe Bryant has been fantastic in his time in Seattle. Obviously, I think him and Nehemiah Pritchett are kind of going to push each other for that second safety position. Don't be surprised if a little iron sharpens iron there and you see some growth from those two. And then Ty Okada. I mean, what an insane interception that he had against the Packers. Full extension, diving, one arm, pulling the pick in. Absolutely fantastic. I also love what he can do on special teams for you. That's a four special teams guy there. And when I say four special teams, I'm talking about a guy who can play on kickoff, kick return, punt return, and shoot. If you really wanted him to, rushing off the edge in a field goal block type situation, he could do that as well. So I just feel like when you look at that crew, you have a bunch of guys who can do a lot of things, just like that cornerback room. If there's an injury, I trust everyone in those two units to come in and make it look like no one has missed a beat. So I love those crew. I'm rounding out my 53-man roster. Of course, you got to go through it. You got to do it. The specialists, because specialists are people too. Michael Dickson, obviously one of the best, if not the best punter in the entire NFL. He's going to stick around. Jason Myers, I know sometimes he makes some fans worried. Doesn't worry me. You're going to keep him around. I need him to keep hitting field goals at a high rate. No more missing 50-yarders when the game's on the line, though. Kick a little bit better than you did against the Rams last year. And then Nick Stoll, that's going to be your long snapper. The kid's a stud. And at this point, he hasn't done anything that makes me worry. When's the last time you saw a snap go over a puncher's head? When's the last time you saw a snap go over a holder's hands? It just doesn't happen with the Seahawks. So I like where we're at there. That is my final 53-man roster projection. Now, over the next couple days, there are going to be moves that are made. Don't be shocked if I'm not 100% perfect. I try to be every single day, and hopefully I get 1% better for you. If you disagree with anything, of course you can go into the comments. But at this point, you're a real one. You stuck around for the whole video. Even if you disagree with me, you still liked how the content came to you. So make sure you go and give it that Pat Wilbur thumbs up. Click that like button and stick around because we're going to have Seahawks videos for you every single day this year, and you're not going to want to miss it. Until next time, I'll see you later.